I'm Jagat Narula in the CardioSource Video Network studios. In this issue of the cardiovascular imaging, we are highlighting molecular imaging. And we are fortunate that we have two stalwarts here with us in the studios. Dr. Barry Zaret, who is from the Yale University School of Medicine. He was the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nuclear Cardiology. And Dr. Bill Strauss, who is from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, who was the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nuclear Medicine. They have been aptly called as the parents of nuclear cardiology and molecular imaging. So I will start with Dr. Zaret first. Barry, you had written an editorial approximately 10 years ago in Journal of Nuclear Cardiology. It was the call to molecular arms. What do you think has happened? Has it really fulfilled your expectations? Do you think we could have done better?
Well, Jagat, we can always do better. I think it's fair to say, though, that over the period of time since that editorial was published, there's been tremendous growth in the field of molecular imaging. It's now recognized widely within both nuclear medicine and certainly now within cardiology and all the imaging components of cardiology. There's funding coming from the NIH and other sources. There are centers of excellence appearing across the country, manuscripts that are appearing in journals. So I think this is a reasonable timetable, considering that at the time that editorial was written, there was virtually no activity in this field.
Bill, we have done very well when it comes to the anatomical and the functional imaging. It looks like that the time has come that we should start focusing on the cellular and subcellular targeting. How would you react to that?
I think that's what we're doing now with molecular imaging. We're identifying mechanisms which I think will lead to the development of new drugs and therapies. We're identifying the fact that different patients respond differently to the same medication and that we need now to personalize medicine. I think that molecular imaging, as it will be applied in cardiology, will do a lot to advance the field in the future.
Let me ask you another question. You are involved in the imaging of the cancer also and other areas. Oncology has done quite well when it comes to molecular imaging. Why do you think that we have lagged behind in cardiology? Or do you really feel that we have lagged behind in cardiology? And what would it take us? And what are the lessons that we need to learn from oncology?
I think that cardiology is not really lagging behind. I think when you look at molecular imaging now in oncology, it's primarily glucose. So we are looking at the metabolism of various tumors, and it turns out that tumors do consume a lot of glucose, but not all tumors consume glucose. There are quite a number where, unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have a good imaging technique to look at the tumors in a molecular sense. In cardiology, I think with receptors now, such as with agents like MIBG or the fluorinated versions of agents which will look at the adrenergic receptor system, we have an opportunity, for example, in patients with heart failure to better characterize what's going on. I think similarly in a paper in this current issue of the journal that was written by you and colleagues, I believe that you have really begun the characterization of A2 receptors and their role in ventricular remodeling. I think this is really an indication of where this kind of molecular imaging can go in terms of highlighting the mechanisms and identifying means of determining which drugs really can work most effectively in these processes.
And Barry, let me ask you that the vulnerable plaques or the atherosclerotic plaques, that has been the holy grail of imaging. Do you think that we would be ever able to get down to such small foci for imaging on a moving structure which is totally bathed by the blood, which has the radioactivity, or for that matter, any other targeting agent?
I think there's real possibility that this can be done non-invasively. I think it's going to take time, but I think it will be done both non-invasively and potentially also with intravascular detectors that will look at both the biochemistry and the anatomy. Just recognize for a moment, though, that the FDG that Bill was just talking about and its efficacy for tumors was around for 15 or 20 years trying to find its right home. And suddenly it happened, and now PET scanners are a necessity in every hospital that treats cancer patients. We need to work very hard on asking the right questions, on moving from scientific excitement to clinical applicability. And that will take time, but I have no doubt that it will happen.
And what will be your message to the budding imagers, and how do you think that you can enthuse clinicians about molecular imaging?
Oh, I think just open your eyes and look at the scientific and medical world around you. Look at what we now know about the genome, the human genome, other species' genomes. Look at the characterization of disease now in terms of its genetic structure. Think about what we're understanding about how cells work, how they communicate, the various compounds that are involved in all of this messaging and trafficking. We as imagers can partner with this incredible advance in science, and in so doing, we will bring to our patients the revolution in modern science.
Thank you, Barry. Anything that you would like to add, Bill?
Nothing other than to totally agree with what Barry said. I think we are really at the beginning of this era of molecular imaging. I think there is a lot more to develop. I think we have instruments where we are improving their resolution. We have radiopharmaceuticals which are doing, which are testing new areas. And we now have joining this molecular imaging area things like magnetic resonance imaging as well as ultrasound. And I think that together with optical imaging, this and its potential in vivo use using catheter-based technology, as Dr. Zarat said, that this is going to make an enormous impact on clinical care within the next 10 years.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Barry. Thanks a lot for being here and the discussion. Thanks a lot once again. And thank you very much for joining us in the CVN studios today.